Hello. It still says it's starting. It doesn't say I'm live yet. I'm going to do my usual and bring it up on here. Yay! Now I can see that I am live. Hello. How are we all doing today? Hope everybody's good and been enjoying some nice weather, albeit from your rain garden. So, right. That's what we want. Want that one so I can see when I have comments in. So, today is on Coxton Tower. Excuse me. I spent a good couple hours this afternoon doing some research on various sites because of course you can't go down to the library. Got a good chunk off of the Arkhams website, some from Canmore and some from other castle sites. I also had a private message from one of the co-owners of the building, and I will copy the contents of that into the chat comments at the very end so that you can all see what they've got. Okay. This is a bit disjointed because I haven't had a chance to put it into a proper timeline as yet, but I will try and do that as I go. So I am using my notes again. So we have a 1300s, 1400s style building that was started, or the original was given to the Inneses of Lhanbryde. After, that's in 1523. In 1572, the license to extend the building or add more to the building was granted to Alexander Innes. Now there's a familiar name, Alexander Innes. The same one who helped the Earl of Huntly trash the convent and the cathedral, whose grandfather was the founder of the convent. Some interesting links. 1584, there was a big argument broke out through various, cheers Grant, through various aspects of the Innes family. There was all sorts of fighting left, right and centre. And they set fire to the building. Now, the building at that point is not what you see today. What you see today is pretty much fireproof because it's all stone. But it wasn't originally. After the fire, in 1590, they strengthened the existing building and added a wee bit more to it. Mainly changed the roof so that the roof was stone clad. So nae tiles and wood, stone. All stone. Everything. And that was 1590. In 1635, there were some skirmishes between the two opposing sides, the Jacobites and the Hanoverians, that involved the house and around the house. So it needed repairs in 1635 and 1645. And let's see, this is me trying to thread the timeline together live on air. In 1867, the building fell empty completely. That was when the last person moved out. Except for in World War II when they had Canadian soldiers in there. It was renovated in 2001 and it's a Category A listed building. Apologies, I am reading from my notes. It's got 4 stories and the main bulk of the tower sits within a 23-foot square. So it doesn't actually take up that much ground space at all. The ground floor, there was the cellar, which is actually ever so slightly below ground level. And that would have been a storage area, and also in times of bad weather, they'd let the cattle come in there to shelter. There's gun loops in the basement, and there's also a hatch that would go up into the main hall, which is the first floor. Now, the hatch is probably for passing stuff up from storage up into the main hall where you would have had your banquets and things. Hi, Phil. Hi, Linda. Where you would have had your banquets and stuff. The first floor is where the front door is. Originally would have been, in times of strife and battle, a ladder. If all is peaceful, there would have been a makeshift wooden stair leading up to the first floor, which could be easily dismantled if things hit the fan. The stone stairs that are there now were added in 1846. The panel, there's a heraldic panel above the front door. The date on that panel is 1644, which some people think is when it was finished, but it's not really. It's kind of like marking this is the end of the time that that particular branch of the family were there. On that plaque, you have AI and RI at the top. That's Alexander Innes, the one who trashed the convent, and Robert Innes. And then at the bottom of the plaque, you have what looks like IR, but it would actually be JR, and KG. So you have Alexander Innes and Robert Innes of Invermarket. The first wife of Alexander was Janet Reed. The second wife was Kate Gordon. And the Robert was technically his boss. He was above him in the chain of command for like homeowners, landowners, lairds, dukes, earls, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hi, Mandy. They think that originally, well, we pretty much know because there's sketches. Originally, there was a courtyard, would have been round the south side, or one of the old words that they've used for it on one of the sites I looked at is barmkin. Barmkin basically is just a curtain wall, a protection wall around the courtyard to stop your enemies from just strolling straight into the place. The tower walls themselves are 4'6" thick, so 4.5 foot thick, something like 1.4 meters or 1.6 meters, something like that. Dave Pilkington, you will see where Gillen's Wood is on a decent OS map. It should be signposted. I'll have a look on my maps that I was using the other night first, and then I'll send you a message later on tonight with the answer. Yes, on the corners, two opposing corners on the top floor, you have two round corbelled, it's like a mini extra tower that's been put on top. They call them bartisans. That's where you put people on watch with big guns. That's what they're there for. And on one of the corners that's between those two, there is an exterior battlement type construction, which is just open to the fresh air, where you would have also had somebody with a good gun, hopefully, or a really good bow and arrow. So there's gun loops all along the top. The roof, solid stone, no wood at all. All the way up the tower, it's basically a single room on top of a single room on top of a single room on top of a single room. It's not multi-roomed like houses are nowadays. And the way they've done it to add to the structural strength of the building, if the ground floor, because they've all got vaulted ceilings, so your stone arches, vaulted ceilings, right? So if the ground floor is that way, the first floor is that way, and the second floor would be that way, and the third floor would be that way. Because every time you put one of these arches into a building, you're throwing the weight off to the edge. So if I had it that way for the stone arch ceiling, right, you're throwing the weight of the building off to one end or the other. And by alternating it like that, it's more structurally sound. It makes sure that the building is going to stand for longer, because there's as little stress as they could possibly put on the building. There's a wee engineering lesson for you. So it's alternate stone vaults in every floor. Then I have the first floor, i.e. the level you would have gone in from the front door. There was an iron yett. An iron yett is basically an iron gate. It looks like a portcullis, but it doesn't get withdrawn up into the building. It just opens like a door. That's what a yett is. It's Y-E-T-T if you're interested. That was your main hall. So that's where anybody and everybody who was visiting would be allowed into that level without any problems. There was a fireplace on that floor. The current one seems to have been installed in 1820. Also in that floor, you've got an Lhanbryde, which is the built-in cupboards. You know, like you sometimes go to these old castles and cathedrals, and like there's a wee hole, but it doesn't go right through the wall. It just goes into the wall, like what you would put your fitted kitchen into nowadays. They're called Lhanbrydes. It's a guy posh word for a cupboard. There's also, above one of the windows, there's a panel with Mary Mackenzie on it. It's Alexander Innes's arms, but Mary Mackenzie is also mentioned on it. Now, this is the next Alexander. So we've got the granddad who founded the convent, his grandson who trashed the convent and got this house, and then his grandson is Sir Alexander Innes. It's all the same family. So we've basically got 3 knights on the same family. Lhanbryde, the convent, and this, and it's all the same family all the way through. So Mary Mackenzie was Sir Alexander's second wife. Second wife. His first wife, Maria Gordon, or Mary Gordon, died in 1685. So that plaque has to be after 1685 because it's got the second wife's name on it. Alexander Innes became the second Baron. He was also a Baronet of Northern Scotland. No, Baronet of Nova Scotia. The wrong NS. He became the Baronet of Nova Scotia. Yeah. 1647 is when Mary Gordon died. I've got my notes scribbled. Literally scribbled notes. And I'm losing my thread already. This is really bad. I should take notes like I used to have to do in college. So, and I've got an alarm going off on my phone. That's not good. On this, going up to the second floor, the staircase is in the corner of the first floor. Going up to the second floor, you have another Lhanbryde, which is the built-in cupboards, and a gun loop on one side. So the building was very well protected, lots of gun loops. So as long as you had folk to fill the gap with their guns, their bows and arrows and stuff, it would have been very easy to defend. The third floor, you have a basic rectangular room. All these rooms are obviously do have windows, but they're very small by modern standards. And there's also 2 doorways into the 2 bartizans, the 2 circular shooting towers that are tagged on the top. The exterior one would have probably been accessed from this floor as well. 1572, we have, see, this is what I mean, I'm skipping from the 1800s back to the 15s. The licence was held by Alexander Innes. Yeah, loads of Alexander Innes's. Trust me, my day job's Elgin Cathedral. I can think of at least 5 gravestones that have Alexander Innes on them. So far, we've only covered 3 on these. So if your family's fae this area, there is a real good chance you are connected. 1584, we have the tower, the fire, and the new tower in 1590. 1714, it was bought by William Duff of Dipple, whose descendants were the Earls and Dukes of Fife, including Braco, as in Braco's banking house in Elgin. 1910, the building was sold to Malcolm Christie's family. Malcolm Christie's family are still the current owners, although a couple of generations down the line by now from 1910. In 1920, the building became a scheduled monument. 1971, it gained the Category A listing scheduled monument, which is pretty much the same level as the Tower of London and Edinburgh Castle and Elgin Cathedral. In 2001, the family, via a solicitor, Law and Dunbar Naismith, hired a firm called LTM for restoration works. They sorted the roof, the harl, the lime wash, among other things. In fact, I can tell you exactly what they did. So, where are they? They reset the loose stones on the roof. They repointed all the way down to the first floor. Reset the guttering. You don't call it guttering, but that's for your benefit and just in case there's any young ones watching. They reset the water runoff channels, which is basically the guttering, to make sure that the water goes as far away from the side of the building as possible, less chance of it causing any damage. They took some of the old chimneys down to a safe level because, of course, when it's been empty for so long, a lot of the stonework becomes unstable without any fault of anybody. So they took them down to a safe level and replaced the chimney stacks, the little bit on the very, very top, replaced that with vented caps. So the air can still circulate through the building without causing any problems, and with it still being open, it's less likely for the damp to creep up through the building. Relined the walls with water throw off. As far as the walls go, they fixed the grout and the lime wash for the harling that was already there. The restoration of the original oak windows and the original doors. When they redid the oak windows and doors, they had handmade nails specifically ordered to do the woodwork for this building. They kept some of the original glass that was still surviving and removed the old Victorian sheet glass that was there and put back something that's more fitting to the age of the building, because the Victorian was far too new. And finally, all the woodwork was protected with a linseed-based paint to protect the wood. Linseed-based paint literally goes back into the 1500s. So it's all been done as closely and as faithfully as it could have been for the time period of the building. And that was the restoration in 2001. I also found a copy of a bill which was from I'm getting old now. I need the old wifey eyes. Philip Robertson, plasterer. In his records book and on the bill, we have painting and plaster works in 1779 for the Duchess of Gordon's summer house at Coxton. So they were using it as a summer house there, which I thought was quite cool. Going back into the 1600s, Timothy Pont, the great map maker. The Pont maps are amazing. You know the ancient map of Elgin that you see popping up in places like Johnston's and on the library, on some of the history pages on here? That's the Timothy Pont map. Timothy Pont maps are really, really good considering they're all like 400 years old. It's on the Timothy Pont map as Coxtou, Cokstou, rather than Coxton. It never was an X until more recent times. The Inneses of Coxton were Jacobites and fought on the side of Bonnie Dundee. They supported the uprisings of 1715 and 1745. At some point after the 1745, in one of my books, well, it's not after, it's kind of during the 1745, there was a lot of Jacobite families in Elgin that felt the need to run and hide. Some of them were housed at Spiney Palace, which was also abandoned by that point, and some of them were actually protected in Coxton Tower as well. If I had the choice between the two, I would have gone for Coxton because of the stone roof. It's fireproof. Spiny, wasn't he? But yeah. Also, the Inneses have a walled burial enclosure in the Lhanbryde cemetery, the old one in the middle. There's a slab dating from 1612, which has Sir Alexander Innes on it. Not literally, of course, just his name. Nearby, there is also a mural tomb. You know when they put these tombs built into walls? That's what they are. A mural tomb with an effigy of a knight. There are 2 panels on that mural tomb. One is 1580 something, because I forgot to write the last number down. I think it's 1586, going by the other dates. And the other one is 1612. That was what I got from my research. So that's 2-3 hours. I went through another 30-40 different pages online, and all I kept finding was the same stuff being repeated over and over and over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up on another page, in fact I can do it on my phone seeing as I can actually see your comments on here. I will bring up the private message that I got from one of the co-owners and give you a more coherent timeline, because obviously they're much more well practiced at reciting it than I am. Let me see when it comes up. Right, this is from one of the co-owners. There will be some information repeated, but he's got it in a much more coherent timeline rather than mine, which is scattered all over the place. The image that I used for the event page is an etching by William Daniel, which was sketched in 1816, but it wasn't put on show until 1821. The other one, which is seen a lot all over the place in various books and online, is by R.W. Billings. Now, Billings is not usually correct, sad to say, because his work is so widely used. I know his sketch of the cathedral, everybody is like, oh yeah, that's what the cathedral looked like when it would partially collapsed but not fully collapsed. No, it's not. He got it wrong. He wasn't very good at perspective, was Billings. He would have been better off either doing a techie drawing type drawing, or a sketch, but by trying to combine the two, most of his sketches are wrong. The Billings one was done in 1845 and is probably an artist's impression, which is pretty much the same idea as the cathedral. This person has said there never would have been a ladder to the first floor, but rather a wooden stairway that could be easily chopped down if needed. The tower is built on a raised beach. The slope down to the north, i.e. towards where you start heading towards the main road, I would say. The slope down to the north would have been the beach, and the two small hills are sand dunes. The one to the west was Gallows Hill, and there were bones found there when planting trees many years ago. Here's your timeline. 1544, James, Earl of Moray, died, leaving the lands of Coxton to Robert Innes of 2nd Laird of Invermarkie, was appointed Lieutenant General of the Kingdom, and did well enough to be created Constable of the Fortress of Itherdurver, or however you're supposed to say it, which is in the Black Isle. The land was his to give away, but still. 1571, Robert Innes, 3rd Laird of Invermarkie, gave to Alexander Innes, the one that trashed the convent, the 2nd Laird of Invermarkie's nephew, the lands of Coxton. 1572, the land was officially registered as Alexander's. Alexander's mother was Christian Coburn. Like the solicitors, it's actually spelt Cockburn. And it potentially might be that Coxton was named after the family home of the Coburns, because a lot of people speak how it's spelled, so Cockburns. It wasn't spelt with an X until later, and evidence suggests it was built on another building because the foundations are slightly out of line with the building. The cut stone has come from Hopeman Quarry. Now that gave me a question mark. Why would you go all the way to Hopeman Quarry for Lhanbryde when en route for Lhanbryde to Hopeman, as the crow flies, you'd be passing 3 quarries? So they must have got a good deal for the one at Hopeman, because I can't see any other reason why they would go past Casebriggs Quarry at the back of Spiny Palace, and the other 2 smaller ones that are in what's now Linkwood in Elgin, to go all the way to Hopeman. Never mind. 1580, the murder of the clan chief in Aberdeen. Alexander's son John was made to plunge the dagger into the chief's body. And as the co-owner says, long complicated story, good book in the library. Later, good look in the library. Later in the following century, giving the full story. 1584, September, tower burned down by the son of the murdered chief. Alexander was given the sum of 7,000 merks and the cost of 2 court cases in compensation. You can see by the difference in the 2 turrets, there's another reason for me to go visit it when we're all allowed out to play. You can see by the difference in the 2 turrets that the southeast one must have been rebuilt and not the northwest one. Building rebuilt with stone roof so it would not burn down again. 1612, Alexander the 1st Laird of Coxton died. 1618, John Innes, the 2nd Laird of Coxton, becomes the 1st Baron of Coxton on the 14th of July. 1635, John Innes died. He disinherited his eldest son, who was married to Marjorie Innes of Lukers, who he disapproved of. Her father had killed the third Laird of Invermark in 1884 and a false servant in 1580, mentioned in the same book later on. As James had died earlier, his son Alexander sacks the tower, i.e. robs it, steals the charter chests, and after intervention by his uncles, gains control of the tower. 1644, date on the tower arms over the door, possibly put there by Alexander, the third Laird, to show he was a family man and honouring his forebears. This is the grandson of the one who trashed the convent. It shows RI for Robert Innes, AI for Alexander Innes, the first Laird, the one who trashed the convent, and Alexander's two wives, JR for Janet Reed and KG for Kate Gordon. 1645, Alexander Anderson, minister of Lhanbryde Church, takes refuge in the towers. Covenanters did some damage to the tower, presumably trying to get at the minister. 1647, the death of Alexander's first wife, Mary Gordon of Geet. I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that. It looks like 8, but it's a G instead of an E. The arms inside on the first floor are from Alexander's second wife, Mary Mackenzie, sister of the Baronet of Coole. 1650, Alexander was knighted by Charles II, probably when he came to Spaymouth on the 23rd of June. There you go, King Charles II was in Spaymouth on the 23rd of June 1650. 1677, the death of the third Laird. He had just built a house in Elgin, where number 53 High Street now stands. I will look that up and see what it is now. Coxton was no longer the main residence. 1686, Sir Alexander Innes becomes the Baronet of Coxton. On the 20th of March, he's the Baronet of Nova Scotia. He was also the third Baron and the fourth Laird. That's an awful lot of titles for one person. 1688, Sir Alexander Innes becomes the Provost of Elgin and Member of Parliament for Moray the following year. People wonder why the Inneses were such an important family through the 1800s. You can see they've laid all this work down through the 15s, 16s, 17s. 1689, Culverhouse, Viscount of Dundee. I'm sure that's Claverhouse, but never mind. Probably the spell check that's messed it up. Viscount of Dundee visited on the 24th of April 1689. Yeah, that's going to be Bonnie Dundee, which is Claverhouse. Visited on the 24th of April 1689 during the campaign that ended at Killiecrankie. In 1708, Sir Alexander Innes died, so he made quite a decent old age, really, for the time period. 1714, George Innes, the second Baronet of Coxton, inherited a lot of his father's debts. He was also, quote, a mighty weak and indolent man, much given to the bottle. So he was a druth, an alky. Sir George Innes married Elizabeth Gordon, and there we have the beginning of the Innes-Gordon estates that's still connected today. Elizabeth Gordon was the heiress to the Towie Barclay estate. He sold the tower to William Duff of Dipple, a transaction he celebrated at a drunken feast. Sir George died after the Battle of Sheriffmuir in 1715. The Innes baronetcy of Coxton continued. The barony had to be sold with the land, but the baronetcy was thought to have died out after the death of the 8th Baronet in 1886. But it was revived in 1973, that's when I was born, and Sir Alistair Innes is currently the 13th Baronet of Coxton. In 1722, William Duff allegedly committed suicide in Balvenie Castle. 1759, his son became the Earl of Fife, William Duff. About 1840, Benjamin Pennycook lives in the Tower as the Earl's Forester before he moved to Lhanbryde. In 1910, Alexander W.G. Duff, the 6th Earl and 1st Duke of Fife, sells the tower to Thomas Christie and restores the tower. They've also added on the end here, ghosts, none that we know of. Their grandmother, who was sensitive to them, didn't feel anything, although an investigation group have come up with some unconvincing photos. That's a direct quote from the co-owner. Not what I'm saying, it's a quote from the co-owner. Some unconvincing photos when they spent a night in the tower once. And we had a nice little chat after that. So that is my notes and the message that I got from the co-owner. The message that they put in, I will copy and paste into the chat after this. And we will see what everybody thinks. So has anybody got any questions? I know that's a bit different because I've read everything out. Hi, Lorraine. That didn't register. Hi, Naomi. You've not registered on the screen either. Why is it not showing you? That's weird. I'm liking the comments on here because I can see them on the phone, but I can't see them on there. So there you go. Alexander Innes is obviously a name that runs in the family. And it seems you get one good one, and then that one's grandson's a bad guy, and then that one's grandson's a good guy. So it's odd. But I suppose the same could be said of any family. One's great, the other one's a pain in the backside, and vice versa. There is, no doubt, much more detail. If I can find that book, I will put the name of it in here. What else was I supposed to be looking for? What else did I say I was going to look for at the end of this broadcast to put into the chat to do with this building? I forgot. See, I speak that much, I actually forget what I've said. I was going to look and see what the building is now on the High Street. 53 High Street. So I have to write down 53 High Street, otherwise I'll forget it. Out of curiosity, let's have a look now. 53 High Street. "53 High Street, Elgin." Come on. Ooh. It's the section where the little plaza is. You know, the little bit where Shop Mobility is and stuff, that little square. It's round about there. Yes, it would be that side. So it's in the wee square where Shop Mobility is where the house was. So obviously it doesn't stand anymore. Oh, there's another mission for me to go digging through the archives when they get opened up again. I'll do what I can online first, though. But yeah, I thought it would be further up than that, because I remember when Vicky Wines was in the one that was the second-hand shop until recently, the second-hand electronics. That was 33. So I thought 53 would have been further up, but apparently Farm Foods is 59. So, weird. Has to be in that little square. Cheers, Naomi. I do enjoy doing them, but I also like giving you guys the opportunity to go, here, far's that. So, and half the comments aren't appearing. Innes House will be connected. I haven't discovered the absolute link yet, because I haven't looked at Innes House on its own yet. But being as close as it is to Coxton and Lhanbryde, it absolutely has to be connected. Absolutely has to be. So I will, that's one to add on. So I have to add on the Thunderton and Innes House now onto the list. You see now what I mean by when you're doing research. Doesn't matter what subject it is, you get one question answered, it gives you another 3 questions. Doesn't matter what you're researching, one answer will lead you to 3 more questions. So this is what I mean. Oh yes, it has to be connected to Innes House, but I've not quite found out how yet. Apart from obviously the name and the location. Because really, if you extend them down to the original area of the grounds for each building, they're pretty much neighbours, I would say. Oh, cool, Barry. Hi, Ruth. Cool. Yeah. So yes, I'm adding the Thunderton and Innes House onto the list of places to do. At this rate, we're going to run out of Lockdown before I run out of history. Which is not a bad thing. And apart from anything else, if it's keeping you ains distracted, as far as I'm concerned, that's job done. Because if it's distracting you from the hassles of what's going on, and giving you a wee bit of edumacation, as we used to say at college, job done. Sorted. And I think when lockdown finishes, it might be the first time in 20, 30 years that anybody will ever have seen me rolling drunk. Because coming out of lockdown has to be a celebration. I remember hearing it had been flats for a while, but I think it's now been reinstated as like the family estate, hasn't it? No, don't answer. I'll do my research. The co-owner that sent me the message is one of the members of the Christie family. So I've heard a lot of stories about Innes House, Barry. Even one from someone who's very close to me who went there for a wedding and saw something that definitely didn't want to actually be seen. And they were knocked out of their shock and surprise when the Roomba lawnmower bumped into their feet. Well, they did. I don't know if they still do. This was about 10 years ago. And they were there for a wedding. I don't think it's a case of anybody and everybody. Again, I'll do some research into that side of it when I do Innes House. I'll look into that side of it as well, because everybody gets married or knows somebody who's going to get married. So if while I'm doing this, I come across the fact that the building currently allows you to have weddings, I will let you know. Like I did with the cathedral. Although goodness knows when all of them are actually going to be allowed to have weddings again. Because currently, something that a lot of folk might not have noticed, but I noticed because I'm the weddings coordinator at work, currently all weddings are banned in Scotland. You cannot get married. Full stop. At the moment. Which is a shame, because I know there are still people, or there were up until last week, still people down south who were able to get married, but there was only like 4 people in the room. So, I don't know. But currently all weddings are banned in Scotland. Which is a shame. But if it makes all the idiots stay home, so be it. You know? Not a lot we could do about it. Not until we invent some super duper thing that can kill viruses, because I promised this was not going to be the poorly crowned talk. But your doctor has told you for every year of your adult life, antibiotics don't help viruses. Which leaves us all with the, okay, so what are you going to do then? Change the subject. Go back to history. Oh, fantastic, Barry. They're banned as well down there now, Ruth. Right, okay. Because I know up until a couple of weeks ago, there was still a few going ahead. I think that one that I saw in the park on my last day at work on my way home, I think that was probably the last wedding in Elgin. The bride and groom that I saw in the park on the way home the day before lockdown started. It was probably the last wedding in Elgin, so I'm glad I snapped them with their photographer. So, it's cool. So, we have, where's my notes from the other day? We have a few more of these chats to come. And as for tonight, we have 2 more getting added. We have the Thunderton and In His House being added. Alright. Cool. But if you think of any other location, bit of Elgin, round about the area, something that you've always wondered about. Did the Vikings get here? Who were the Picts? Who was the Celts? What was the difference? Did King Henry VIII come up here? I can answer that one for you in one word. No! Anything that comes to mind to do with the local area and its history. It doesn't have to be ancient history. It can be something from the 40s, 50s and 60s. Then at least I can pick some grown-ups' brains. But anything that occurs to you, drop me a message or comment on one of the posts and I'll add it onto the list. We've got to find some way of using time during this. I tell you, see, by the end of this, everybody's going to have a fantastic garden, at least one person in the house who's a brilliant cook, but we're all going to look like Yetis. The queue for the hairdressers the first day out of lockdown is going to be the length of the high street. I am going to end up strimming mine myself because it's been driving me nuts for 3 weeks already. Old Dr. Gray's building, yeah, the one that was technically the insane house. That's on the list. Bray Morriston House. It's a funny one. There is a funky energy in the woods around it, and basically, if that was your paper round, you would have done my house on your paper round because it's like right out there and across the road. Literally, if I stuck my camera out the road, out the window, you would see the woodies that surround Bray Morriston House. So I do definitely need to do some research on that, apart from little bits and pieces that I know from people who were helping with some, not so much renovations, but alterations and renewing the insulation stuff. See, I know. See, because it's health supplements, they're going to keep you there as first liners. That's a bit rotten. I did think you'd still be working, like, but I don't know. He is a good cook. I can definitely vouch for that. I still remember the macaroni cheese feast of 1994 when he made enough to feed a battleship. He made something for everybody else, and then he's like, "Oh, I've made you a mac and cheese," and came through with a hail flaming casserole dish full. It was beautiful, mind. I've got my own little hacks for mac and cheese. By the way, folks, if you love macaroni cheese, or you kind of tolerate it, but it's a little bit bland, throw a wee touch of nutmeg and cayenne in it. And if you're brave, a wee bit chilli as well. It's really nice. Yeah. There is a something in that gateway, Scott. I can tell you that because I have seen it, but I've not seen it enough to know what it is. But there is a something there. So there is definitely a something there. I've seen from looking up from Bishop Millbridge, looking up to that house, or the bit that you can see from Bishop Millbridge. I've seen someone on one of the balconies looking down, but there's a slight snag in the fact that the clothing they're wearing is always the same. No matter what time of night it is, no matter what time of year it is, they're always in a pale yellow flimsy dress, which is of a 1920s design. Stood on the balcony, looking down over the river. I need to speak to the guy that's basically running the building, see if I can go in here, wander around with my kit, see who I can pick up. Or not, you know. Sometimes it is just a recording, and there's nothing to pick up. But we shall see. But I will add it onto the list too. Bray Morriston. That's it added to the list. So that's us on 54, 55 minutes. Aye. There's thousands of stories around different places like that. I always felt I was being watched, but I never stayed for more than 30 seconds. Thousands of people have said that. Hundreds of people have said that to me about various places, you know. But yeah, hopefully when lockdown ends we can get some little mini investigations. I always call them mini investigations because it's pretty much only going to be me, because a lot of them are private houses. A lot of the requests I get are private houses, so we can't have anybody and everybody traipsing through. We can't broadcast from the house just in case something gives away who it is, where they are. So that's why you just end up with little reports from me every now and again. Did a private house, blah, 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 this happened, that happened, all fixed now. But really want to get some proper investigations going when lockdown finishes and we're all allowed to go out and play. But in the meantime, if there's interest, I can do a paranormal chat and add that onto the list too if you want. It's entirely up to you, the people of the page. But that's us. 56 minutes. I will leave it at that. And I'll see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock as usual for whatever I added on the list for tomorrow night. I really can't remember. It's all just mince up here now. Right, there's a yes from Naomi. I'll put a post on the main page. Is that the one with the narrow little gate that goes in with the posh front door, or is that the great big gate with all the floors around the side of the building? Because that's another one that's just round the corner for me. I think Deansford's the one with the great big open gateway, isn't it? Because there's two houses. There's the one that me and my mum call the doctor's house, and then there's the one with all the floors and the big fancy gateways. Cool. So there's more added to the list. I'll put a vote up on the main page. Should we do a paranormal chat or should we stick to history? And we'll see what the result is. So hopefully it's a yes, because the whole point of having a ghost tours page is we have to have a little bit of the creepy oogity boogity stuff too. You can't have a ghost without history. You can't have history without a ghost. They both go hand in hand with each other. If somebody tells me Mary Queen of Scots haunts a particular building, I want to know, was she ever there? How long did she spend there? What happened there that might cause her to haunt the building? Oh, I think I know the one you mean. It's a narrow gate off of the back street, and before you even get to the house, you're already going downhill. It's really, really bonny at the street side. You can't see much because there's a dirty great big wall and just a wee narrow gate, but the bit you can see is really bonny. And the stonework's amazing, even in the external wall. So I will do some digging and I will add it onto the list along with the Thunderton and Innes House and Bray Morriston. Even if it ends up that I only get a little bit of each and I can blend a few of them together, seeing as, well, I can blend Bray Morriston and Deansford in together because they're neighbours practically. So that's what we'll do. I'll see what I can find out. If I can't find much, I'll do both of them in one night. Yeah. I'll find out what I can. Right, we're on 9 o'clock now. I will leave you to it. It's Friday night. My ghosty programmes are on. If you've nothing planned for your evening watching on the telly box, the Really channel is our ghosty programmes from now until 2 a.m. If you want some ghosty programmes. A lot of them are American and a bit far-fetched, but purely entertainment. And it's something different if you don't usually watch that stuff. Ooh, I want to hear that one. I want to hear that one, Scott. So drop me a message. If you don't make it public, make sure you drop me a message. But you can comment it onto the page if you want. But I'm going to head off just now because they're already started. Oh, yeah. Say hello to everybody, Ruth. I will pop in at some night. But it's just one of these. It's like, yeah, got to do this, got to do that. You know what I'm like? Oh, shiny. When it's all finished, everybody's going to be spending a fortune on fuel or travel because everybody's going to be up and down the country spending time with other folk that they haven't been able to see. So, be well, stay well, and look after you and yours. We'll see you tomorrow night with whatever I've scheduled in for tomorrow night's chat. Night night. Bye.